Good evening. This is Cap'n Tinsley, Salty Abandon, with the first Salty podcast. And before we get to our guest, I want to take care of two things. And I'm new with this software, so please be patient. Okay, first thing is I want to recognize tonight's sponsor, which is me. So, in case you didn't know, I'm Tinsley Myrick, broker associate of Remax of Orange Beach. I sell Gulfront properties in Gulf Shores, Orange Beach, Alabama, as well as Perdido Key, Florida. So if you're interested, you can email me at tinsley@tinsleymyrick.com. And one more thing, please smash that like button on YouTube, Twitter, and Facebook. Okay, so Captain Ralph is somebody I've known since 2015. I took sailing lessons from him, and I took captain's class and then upgraded the captain's class. And I know his wife, who's also a sailor. Shout out to Catalina. Let me just read this sentence here about him, and we'll bring him in. Captain Ralph Bush is from Punta Gorda, Florida. He is a sailor, captain school instructor, boat broker, and former ASA instructor. So here we go. Hey, Ralph. Can you hear me? I can't hear you. Oh, shoot. Oh, we have our first technical difficulty. Are your headphones working? How about your mic? Do you have your mic on? Oh, I've almost heard you. Can you guys hear me? Go ahead and comment, and if you can hear me, please comment. Can you hear me? Wow, we have our first technical difficulty. Can you hear me? Can you hear? No? Oh, oh man. All right, let me just call him real quick. Okay, Scott says he can hear me, and but it sounds. Scott says your microphone must be muted. Here he is. What's that? I'm putting you on speakerphone so people know you're real. Oh shoot.
We're unmuted.
Yeah.
I'm looking at settings here.
So
I tested everything earlier. Of course, it all worked.
Yeah, here's some comments from people. And then Scott says, is his microphone muted? Which it's not. So
yeah, it's not.
Oh man. I practice this and everything.
Okay. Sound. Can you hear me?
No, just over this.
Okay.
How about your microphone? Did you give it permission when you signed in? Did you give the microphone and the camera permission? Let's see. I'm gonna turn. Okay. You want to try to dial back in? Well, we got 8 people watching and no Captain Ralph. So you can hear me now, huh? Oh, we got 9 people. Okay, so I think he's gonna go. He's out now. He's gonna come back in. Okay, so I'm gonna add you in. All right, can you hear me? Okay, but I just can't hear you. So there were 2 things you had to allow: your microphone and your camera, where there were permissions at the top of your screen up there. Is there like a little, you did that? When you came in, there were 2, you had to, at the top, like up towards the top of your browser, there were 2 things you had to allow. One was a microphone and one was a camera.
Hmm.
Oh, I heard you. I heard you.
Is that better?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
Right, I'm
It's
gonna
a
hang
little
up the phone
patience.
now.
We got it. Okay.
Okay. Did you connect the phone
Now,
call? Okay.
welcome.
Okay. All right. We're here.
Welcome, Captain Ralph. I promise you it's worth the wait.
I don't know about
Okay,
that, but
okay, so I just told him a little bit about you, and what I'd like to do is before you were a broker, before you were a captain school instructor, before you were an ASA instructor, just briefly, what did you do before that? We want to. I know your backstory. Well, I know some of it anyway. What did you do before that?
I spent most of my adult life in the newspaper business, mostly management of newspaper groups. Towards the end of my career, it was primarily troubled newspaper groups, which towards the end of my career was pretty much most of the newspaper groups. But lived most of my life in Florida, but I've lived all over. We lived in Missouri for years. That's actually where I learned to sail, was living in Missouri, sailing on a lake in Oklahoma. Yes, there are lakes in Oklahoma. And
Wow.
we lived in Tennessee for a while. We lived in Maryland for a while, and always kind of looped back to Florida. So came back here.
Okay. So, where were you when you started sailing?
I'm sorry. Say again.
How old were you when you started sailing?
I was old. I wasn't one of those people that started as a kid. I think I was in my late 30s when I started sailing. I'd been around the water my whole life, but had been primarily a powerboater, water skied, and we scuba dive and a lot of things. But I used to see the sailboats out on the water, and really just intrigued me, and just decided one day I'm going to do this. And so I did. I actually went and bought I went and bought a boat at an auction for $275, and it had three holes in the bottom of it, and it was really rough shape. And decided if I was going to fix it, I probably needed to learn a little bit about sailboats. So took an ASA class and just kind of went from there.
Okay, well, so you met your wife Kathleen in Missouri, right?
That's right. Yes. Yeah, we lived in Missouri at the
That's
time,
where
and
she
she
grew
had
up.
yeah, she grew up in a little town in south central Missouri. She had never sailed until we got married. So.
Okay. Okay, so I remember you telling me that you saw the writing on the wall with the newspaper business, and so you decided to exit that. Like newspapers were kind of coming to an end, right? And so how did you get to being a ASA instructor? So I don't know what happens in between then.
Well, I had gotten my captain's license already, and kind of played around with the idea. And my son, who is a captain, actually had started, and he's not particularly a sailor, but he had actually started teaching sailing for Emerald Coast Sailing in Pensacola. And when I decided, we were in Maryland at the time, and I agreed to stay there 3 years, which I did. And I'm a Southern boy, in case you can't tell by the way I talk. And it gets cold in Maryland, for those of you that don't know that. And I couldn't take Maryland anymore, and was not having a whole lot of fun in the newspaper business there. So we moved back to Pensacola, and I contacted Rick and Peggy at Emerald Coast, and talked to them
And
about
that's where I
teaching
met
sailing there. Yeah, yeah. Talked to them about teaching sailing there. And so jumped in and taught there for several years, and taught captain school classes there as well.
And didn't Kathleen say she'd go to Maryland if she just had to stay like a short time or something, then you get her back to warm weather? Wasn't it something like that?
Yeah, we knew when we were going up there that it was a limited time, and I came home. It was a tough time in the industry, and it was tough for us being away and being up there where it was cold. And I agreed to stay 3 years, and I came home after 3 years to one night, and I said, "It is time to go home." And she looked at me like only your wife can look at you, and said, "Well, what took you so long?" So at that time, all of our kids were in Pensacola, so we came back to Pensacola.
And your son's in the Coast Guard?
My oldest son, my oldest son was in the Coast Guard. He is not anymore. He's a professional captain and worked several different jobs. My youngest son is in the Navy, and my grandson is now in the Coast Guard. He's active duty in the Coast Guard. So, yeah,
Okay.
a lot of connections there.
So I met you. I had already taken ASA 101 and 103 by a different instructor, but then I found you a couple years later at Emerald Coast and took ASA 104. And then I bought your wife's Catalina 25.
The one that she said she wasn't going to sell.
Yeah. And that was the perfect first boat for me. That was, I sailed it for about a whopping 10 months before I upgraded. And you guys helped me find that boat.
Yeah, James, yeah. The first
the Island Packet
abandoned.
27. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. And so then one day you were gone. You left Pensacola.
Yeah. We came down to South Florida. It was
and
too
tell
cold.
Me about that. Yeah.
Too cold. I know people laugh, but
it's not that cold.
Yeah. We had lived down here before. I had managed some newspapers down here, and so we had lived down here before. We still had friends down here, and we just decided we wanted to move. And by that time, our kids had pretty much all scattered. So, so we moved down here, and I was a broker with Edwards Yacht Sales, and we were in Pensacola, and I moved down here, and went to work with Pier 1 Yacht Sales down here, and still up in Pensacola every 5 or 6 weeks teaching classes up there, and then so brokering boats and teaching classes.
So before I know you left being an ASA instructor, for sailing. Before we leave that, can you tell the importance, kind of tell us the importance? I know how important it was to me, or it still is. I still remember some things you told me, and they just come to my mind. Tell me the importance of taking lessons. I was like you. I'd never sailed. I've ridden on a couple of sailboats, maybe 2 times. I've never sailed. People say, "Oh, you've been doing this your whole life?" No, in my 40s, that's when I started. So, if you recommend people taking sailing lessons and getting the certifications.
I don't know how to emphasize that enough. You can teach yourself to sail, and there's nothing wrong with getting out and learning things on your own, but there's it's really important. I'm not one of those people that thinks there's only one way to do things and that's my way. I'm just not. But there is a difference between safe and unsafe ways to do things. And so it's really important. Safety is just so important, and it's important to learn the safe way to do things. And it makes a huge difference in your learning curve, as far as having somebody that can help you through that. And I tell this all the time in class. You see this point where people reach and they understand the points of sail. They understand, they can put a boat on a beam reach. They can go close hauled. But when you say, okay, see that point over there, take me there, that's a whole different thing, because then you have to factor in what direction the wind's blowing and all the things that are happening to you. And you get this funny look, they get this funny look on their face because you can't go from here to there. Well, in a sailboat, you can't always do that, as you know. And so it's a whole different dimension. And it's important that you do that with somebody that can help you through that. The other thing is, in class, it was always tough when you had really bad weather days. But the good thing about having bad weather when you have an instructor on board is it's not scary, because you have somebody there that knows how to handle this and how to get you through it. So you almost welcome those days where the wind really comes up unexpectedly, or you have bad weather, because that's an opportunity. It's a teaching opportunity. It's an opportunity for students to feel safe with that, where if they're out there by themselves and that happens to them, it's not necessarily a safe learning opportunity.
Well, what about, like around of the Gulf Coast, there's the ICW. How important is it to learn the rules of the road?
Oh my gosh. Oh, you're trying to get me in trouble. One thing I'm never short of is opinions, but it's
I have plenty. I got a lot of gripes.
Power boaters don't know the rules of the road, and they don't care. I mean, and I don't mean that detrimentally. I don't mean that bad against power boaters. They just don't. Sailors, and I heard this from the time I first started learning to sail. Sailboats have the right of way over everything. And I heard sailboats say that over and over and over and over. And it's not true. It is wrong on so many levels, but most sailors don't understand that. And it's really important that you do understand there's no such thing as right of way for sailboats. And right of way implies I can go do whatever I want and you have to move. And that's not the case. And it's dangerous for you to not understand that.
And probably most people listening to this know what we're talking about, but if I have the engine running, I'm a powerboat. I have to follow powerboat rules, right?
Well, let me clarify that. Engine, it's not necessarily just the engine running. If you have the engine, the propeller is engaged and you're using the engine to move the boat.
Okay.
So I can be charging my batteries while I'm sailing, but as long as the propeller's not engaged, then I'm still a sailboat. But if I engage the propeller, then I become a powerboat and I have to act accordingly. Now, let me add to that. Court cases have actually shown, in cases where a sailboat had an engine and could have used that engine to avoid a collision and did not, they were found to be partially at fault. So even at the time, and almost every maritime court case, I've never seen one that was 100%. It's 80-20, 70-30 when they assign blame. And so sailboats have been assigned blame because they could have used their engine to avoid a collision and they did not.
Well, one of the things that I remember quite a few things that you taught me. They just, like, I've told you this when I'm coming in, like, to the dock, and you said, "Don't look at what you don't want to hit." That's one of my favorites. That's classic Ralph right there. And I use it. I use it every time. Yeah. Look at the number in the back of the slip. Also,
Yeah. Look
show
at where you want to go.
intention. Like if you're coming up to a barge or something, and I remember you saying, you need to kind of go this way, and I said, oh, I'm not going to hit him, and you said he needs to know that you're not going to
Right.
hit him, and
Right.
that was just that's some wisdom right there. We have to show
Make your intentions clear. Don't make a small
right.
a series, and the rules even say a series of small course changes should be avoided. So make a big change, even if you just hold it for a minute, because that acknowledges, hey, I know I'm the giveaway boat, and this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to give way. So make your intentions clear.
And what's your Ralphism for remembering which side the red is in the ICW?
Red right returning to Texas. Is that what you're?
Red right return all the way to Texas. Yeah.
Yeah. Red right. Students seem to remember that better. So yeah.
I never forgot it.
Yeah.
I've heard other ones. So I said, well, the one I know is this. Some say on the land. It's by the land.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Yeah. Red right.
Anything else? Anything else? Perhaps that you've seen out there that you see a lot of people making mistakes. I mean, I see it all the time. I'm traveling on my boat right now, so it's just I could make a huge list. I got one for you.
Yeah.
What is the rule? Like, going west coast of Florida, I'm going through a lot of drawbridges.
Mm-hmm.
And, I've got it all down. Of course, I've done it so many times. But I was going through, and the bridge tender said, okay, you go, salty abandoned. And all of a sudden, this big power boat, and it was bigger than mine. I have a 32-foot boat. All of a sudden, he squeezes in there, laying awake, plunging through. And the wife was on the back videoing me. And so she got me going, what are you doing? He went he squeezed through there. Is that legal?
No. But, and I revert back to what I said a while ago, powerboaters don't know the rules of the road and they don't care. So no, it's not. And he's responsible for that, and he's responsible for his wake. But he's in a hurry, and he's assuming that your sailboat is going to be moving slower than him, and so he's going to go around.
What about that 48-foot mast up there that can hit the?
Yeah. The safest thing you can do out there is assume that nobody else out there knows the rules and act accordingly. And it's really tricky because I'll give you an example. I was bringing a boat up through the Miserable Mile. You know where that is, coming out of Fort Myers, heading up the Intercoastal. A lot of people don't know that, but if you turn north off the Caloosahatchee, coming up through there, and there's a big power boat, and he's coming towards me.
Always.
And he's getting set by the wind, so he is now over on my side of the channel. And I'm in a small sailboat heading north, and there is no room to get out of the channel there. It's really shallow, and you've got to stay in the channel. And he's on my side. So the point of this is, if I swerve over to his side, to where he should be, and he suddenly comes out of his coma and goes back to the correct side of the channel, and he hits me, I'm now the one that's at fault, because I'm the one that's I had to go to the wrong side of the channel to miss him. But so the question is, what do you do? I mean, he's on the wrong side of the channel. How do you avoid him? Now, I eased out of the channel, so if he was going to hit me, he had to come completely out of the channel, and I actually hid behind a marker. Kathleen gets attached, my wife gets attached to boats. I don't. So if he hit me, oh well. But he was going to have to hit the marker first before he hit me, which would be a clear indication he was on the wrong side of the road. But the point is, assume that they don't know, and because it's usually a pretty safe assumption. Most of the people out there don't.
Right. I could go on and on about these kind of stories, but we'll move on. And I'm going to encourage. There are people commenting. I'm hiding them from you so you don't get distracted.
Okay.
And then we'll have a Q&A afterwards.
Okay.
Now I forgot where I was going. Okay. So, all right. So you gave that up, and I guess you just got tired of it. Is that right?
What's that? Teaching sailing? Oh, I do still very occasionally. I still have all my certifications to teach it. I just I don't. And the only school that I've actually really been affiliated with has been Emerald Coast and Pensacola. And so for ASA, you actually have to go through a school. So I still am certified to teach. I just haven't. There's not time to do everything and still have time to actually sail. So
sure.
Yeah.
Okay. So you went to Punta Gorda. You're already a broker.
Mm-hmm.
You're already a captain school instructor. So let's talk about captain school.
Okay.
So I'm really grateful that you do come back to Pensacola. That's where I jumped in there. And I know you offer it online. Oh, let me show you. So here is the website, Safe Passage Maritime. And you can get your USCG captain's license. And so you can sign up there. That he has an online version and he has an in-person version. But I think that when you're learning the charting, I think it's important to do it in person.
I own the school. I wrote the course material. I am the worst salesman in the world for online OUPV. I just am. I think to be able to work with an instructor and to be in a classroom where you have interaction with the other students, I think just makes a huge difference. It works really well for people like they've had their captain's license in the past, they let it lapse, and now they're trying to renew it. It works really well for people that have the experience, but it is really tough to learn the plotting and to learn the rules of the road online. And you may be the exception to that, but it's really tough. And we do have a lot of people that sign up for the online class, usually because they're in a hurry. They don't want to wait for our next class. I'm in a hurry. I want to get this. And then 6 months or 8 months later, they call me and say, obviously I'm never going to get through this online. Can I please come and do this in the class? And we'll squeeze them into the next class.
And I will say that class was a lot of fun. People were fun. You were fun. When I was taking the 4 tests at the end, I was so stressed out, and you were laughing at me. But you really made it easy to understand, enjoyable, and really know your subject. So you're still doing that.
It is a lot of information. It is a very intense class, but it can still be fun. You'll learn a lot. Some of it will stick with you, some of it won't, but some of it will stick with you. Some of it will come to you even though you don't remember it. It'll come to you when you don't think it's there. But yeah, it's a lot of information, and
well,
it is
I've
fun.
sent you a text on my inReach exploring from the middle of Florida Bay. I forgot what lights to turn on. That was my first time.
Yeah.
So I appreciate you always being available.
It's a great way to learn the rules of the road. It's a great way. I think one of the most important things out of the class is learning aids to navigation. I have a lot of people in class that they've been on the water their whole life, and they know in the area that they're in what to do with the red and green markers. But if you picked them up and transplanted them somewhere else, they have no clue how to read those. And you go to strange areas, and especially at dusk or at night, and you got lots of different flashing lights, and if you have no idea how to read those, it's intimidating. And I know this will come as a surprise to most people, but your GPS will lie to you.
Yes, it will.
Is not, or it will fail you. And you need to know. You need to know what to do when you're coming up to that marker. You need to know how to react to it. It's important.
Well, sometimes those markers are missing.
Yeah.
There's some still out there right now from Idalia.
I brought a boat across Stewart in a little harbor there in Stewart, and it's a small area, but a lot of markers in there and a lot of channels coming out of there. And I brought a boat across there I had just bought, and was bringing it across the Okeechobee waterway, had a GPS literally hot wired into the battery. And it tried 2 different times coming through Stewart to take me on the wrong side of a preferred channel marker. And it's tough to look at that marker and look at your GPS and go a different way than what your GPS is telling you. But I knew that it was wrong, and sometimes it just happens.
Well, that happened to me when I went into Redfish Pass, and I tried to follow my old tracks. You remember?
Yeah,
and
yeah.
They had moved. They had moved the markers, and I was like, no, that's not it. And so I ran aground. And I had to. Here comes. I have Sea-Tow and Towboat US just for that reason.
Yeah, yeah. You need to learn.
Yeah, and have Sea-Tow and Towboat US, right?
Yeah, it will be. Most people think having a boat towed is like having a car towed. You can have a car towed and it might cost you $50 or $100. If they hook up a tow line to your boat, it's going to cost you $1,000. I mean, and that's if they aren't towing you very far. It is very, very expensive. So yeah,
I had one for 11 hours one time. Cost me nothing. Yeah. I paid that $190 a year for Sea-Tow. That would have been how much? $20,000? I don't know.
Oh, who knows?
11 hours.
I had some people that I brokered their boat. They ran aground in Stump Pass, and they called me. And Stump Pass.
I've never gone through there.
Don't. It is not a place you want to take a sailboat under any circumstances.
No,
but
no.
And they were finally able to get the boat off, but they told them that they were probably going to have to deploy flotation. And if they did, the minimum charge was $15,000. So
did they just walk away from the boat?
No,
we'll just leave it.
Yeah, done. Yeah, no, it's expensive.
Okay,
it's very expensive.
So tell us the. I know you said you're not a good salesperson, but the importance. I've heard you in class. You tell us the importance of all of these things. The importance of captain school. Like, what kind of people take it?
I get a mix. A lot of the people that come through the class are people that want to use it. They want to be a charter captain, and they're going to do fishing charters. And then the other is people that just want to learn. You're going to learn. Yeah. And honestly, that's how I started. When I first took my first captain's class, I had no intention of really doing anything with it. Even if you learn how to plot, you learn how to plot on paper charts, you learn how to do set and drift, you'll learn a lot of things. Even if you never do those, once you get out of class, you may never do another set and drift problem, but it will change your perspective. Even if all you ever use from then on is GPS, you have a better understanding of your GPS and of latitude and longitude and how to do navigation. It really changes your perspective because you understand it better. So there's just a lot of information in there. We talked about rules of the road. And even if you take an ASA class, they talk about rules of the road and how it applies to sailboats. So very, very limited exposure to rules of the road, but there's a lot of stuff out there, and so you'll learn it. Aids to navigation, again, that's another one. We go through basic understanding of weather, and I always tell my students I'm not going to spend an hour in class on weather and make you an expert when people with postgraduate degrees still can't get it right, but half the time. But if you understand the physics of what's happening as weather changes, it will give you an understanding of what's going to happen. You may not know exactly when it's going to rain.
I remember you covering a lot of weather.
Yeah. And we talk about a lot of the physics of it. Yeah, the physics of what is going to happen when a low pressure system comes in, when a cold front comes in. The physics of what's going to happen. Now, is it going to get here at 9:52 or 3:52 this afternoon? Who knows? But when it gets here, we know what's going to happen. It's just a lot of information out there.
Yeah. Okay. Is there anything else you'd like to say about captain school? There's so much more to say, but what do you think is important?
I think I am an advocate of boater licensing. I think every boater on the water should have to have some level of license. And Florida kind of has that. But I think even if you never intend to operate as a captain, I think it's a great opportunity to learn things that will benefit you out on the water. So I think it's a great educational experience.
Oh, there's a question. Okay, what is this? You may have already covered this, but sailboats always have. Yeah, yeah, we did cover that, but they don't.
They do not absolutely have the right of way, and in fact, and I'll talk about this just since somebody asked. There is only one case where the rules of the road use the phrase right of way. Right of way implies I can do whatever I want, and everybody else has to move. And there is
that's not even a real thing. Yeah, that's not even a real thing right away. Right.
There is only one case in the rules
where
they use the phrase right away, and right away has nothing to do with sailboats. Right away has to do with limited maneuverability caused by a downbound current versus an upbound. So really what they're talking about is barges on the Mississippi River, and it has nothing to do with sailboats. Sailboats absolutely do not always have right of way. And in fact, in some specific cases are told specifically not to interfere with other vessels.
Yeah. Yeah. And Marion, we were talking before you came on that when, and I oversimplified it, but when a sailboat has the motor on, if they're running the motor, right? If they're being propelled by the motor.
By the motor, yeah.
They have to follow powerboat rules.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
There was a case.
I use that to my advantage because people don't know. They get out of my way and I'm not going to tell them.
There was a case, and it's actually been a couple of years ago now, and it was kind of a spinoff of the Everglades Challenge, the small sailboat race. But anyway, there was somebody in a small sailboat, and he was tacking back and forth down the intercoastal waterway, and he was actually ticketed. And what happened, and it just blew up on the forums because all the rules experts who have never read the rules and learned them from the guy down the dock who's never read the rules were just incensed by the fact that they had ticketed the sailboat because the sailboat has a right of way over everything. Well, no, sailboats are specifically told not to impede the passage of a vessel in a narrow channel or fairway. So this guy was tacking back and forth down the intercoastal, and he had been warned once, you can't do this. And he kept doing it, and they ticketed him, and rightfully so, because he had reached the point he was flagrant about it. But yeah, you cannot.
So powerboaters aren't the only ones that get a little rude.
Yeah, well, sailboats, sailors think they know the rules, but they've never read them. And they learned them, like I said, from the guy down the dock who's never read them. And they get these things in their head, and they will vehemently defend it. And it's not true. Yeah, sailboats do not have the right of way under sail. There's a pecking order. And in that pecking order, sailboats are actually... sailboats are close to the bottom, and in open water, not in any kind of a channel, not with any kind of impingement or anything to impede you. In open water, sailboats are stand on over powerboats, and powerboats.
Do you see this comment here?
I know.
You see that one?
I know. Yeah.
David, thank you.
Yeah, and
in a shipping channel.
Yeah, and you're absolutely not. You can get in an argument, but you're going to lose that. An old mentor of mine says, like fighting with a skunk, even if you win, you lose. I mean, that is a no-win situation. So
You don't want to tangle with that.
no, you don't.
I also
You
heard a nasty rumor about sailors that we don't tip.
But what?
That we don't tip.
Oh,
I'm
well,
shocked.
sailors
tip.
have sailors have a tendency to be a little frugal, and so yeah, that's and a lot of marinas really don't like to see sailors come in because they would much rather see a powerboat that comes in that's going to buy $1,000 or $2,000 worth of fuel as opposed to a
they're bringing in money.
Yeah, as opposed to a sailor that's going to come in and buy 8 gallons of fuel and want their holding pumped out, and they're going to take on water, and they're going to tie up the fuel dock all the time when they're doing that, and then they're going to tip the guy on the dock. They're going to tip him $5. So yeah, yeah.
Well, I asked the dockhand over at Safe Harbor in Bradenton. I said, "Is that true?" And he said, "Well," he goes, "Sometimes, yeah." I said, "Well, I'm here to change that rumor." So go out to my fellow sailors. When you come in, I mean, $20 if someone helps you tie up. What do you think?
Oh, for tipping,
I'm usually by myself.
Yeah, most sailors aren't going to tip them anything. They'll thank them, and they aren't going to tip them anything. So yeah.
Okay, I want to shame all the sailors out there who are not tipping. Don't be.
Yeah.
I can't support all of you on tips. Okay.
Yeah.
All right, so we got that straight. Okay. How about the boat broker? So how long have you been a boat broker? You said it's been a while.
I've had my license about 15 years. And a lot of that time I was, I had my license when I was teaching sailing, and so I wasn't real active with it. And then probably the last 7 or 8 years have been active with it, very active in it.
And so do you think your teaching, your sailing instructing, and your captain school, that helps you help your clients find the right boat?
Oh yeah, I think so. I enjoy helping people find the right boat. I'm not in it to just try and cram a boat down their throat. Buy this boat so I can go on to do something else. I really enjoy helping people find a boat that really is what they're looking for.
Well, there's probably somebody on here that needs to take lessons, that needs to get their captain's license and buy a boat by a guy that's going to help them.
And that's actually why I went ahead and got my broker's license, because I was teaching sailing, and people would get through the class and they'd say, we really love this. We think we want to go buy a boat. And I got tired of sending them.
Well, as a matter of fact, I can help you with that.
Yeah. So I got tired of sending them on to somebody else to find a boat for them. Yeah. It is fun. I enjoy that.
Well, I read BYOB, Caribbean Island Hopping. Do you know that book? He is Captain John, I think. And it's all about don't buy a bigger boat than you need. The bigger the boat, the more expensive everything is. The rigging, the sails, the dock fees, the bottom jobs, everything. And so that's really why I kind of went towards the Island Packet 27, because, and then I did go to the 320, but people, you should get an Island Packet 35. No, I don't think I need that. Am I going to day sail an Island Packet 35 by myself? Probably not. What do you think?
The rule is the bigger the boat, the less it goes out. And you walk into any marina, and the smaller boats are getting used, and the bigger boats are not. People buy the big boat, they sail it a few times, they realize it's a lot of work and it requires crew. And there are exceptions to always to that kind of thing. And there's always those people out there that, they're going to go day sail their 45-foot boat. But the general rule is the bigger the boat, the less it's going to go out. And at COVID, COVID, everything went crazy. People were buying boats like crazy, and everybody wanted big boats. You could not give away a boat in the 30-foot range. Everybody wanted 40-foot or bigger, and a lot of them wanted 50-foot. And this is the first time, and I've been doing this a while. This is the first time I've ever had this happen. People were coming back and saying, my insurance company told me I can't buy a boat that big. Well, first of all, your insurance company shouldn't be the one to have to tell you that. You should have known that. You have no experience and no ability to operate a 50-foot boat. But that happened, and it's because people wanted really big boats, and they did not want small stuff. Now we're starting to see that turn back around. So,
well, I've been on the dock somewhere, like Key West or something, and you know how people come by and go, "Oh, I love your boat. We're thinking about doing it." I was like, "Oh, really? Well, how big of a boat are you?" "Oh, 50 foot. They've never sailed before." So, well, you might want to start a little. You might want to read this book, BYOB Caribbean, because and it said, the book also says you don't have to spend $1 million. You don't have to. You can get it like you did. You bought a boat for $250.
Yeah.
And if you could fix it up, if you have that skill, you can save a lot of money. I don't have that skill.
and that's okay. I enjoyed fixing it. I enjoyed working on it, and I still work on it. I still buy and sell a lot of boats. I enjoy working on it, but we always have a boat that we can go get on and go sail. I also hear stories about people that spend 5-10 years restoring a boat, and then they never get to sail it. Because they spent all their time fixing it. So, you got to have some balance there. You got to be able to go out and have some fun. Don't forget why you're doing it. But yeah, you don't have to have the most expensive boat in the world. And you're going to have more fun on a boat that you can handle than you are on a boat that you're either afraid to take out or you're unable to take out because it requires lots of crew that you don't have. So get a boat you can go sail and have fun on.
Go small, go now is what I heard.
Exactly. Yeah.
And when I was taking lessons, when I took all the 3 courses that I took, ASA courses, I made sure that I was being taught how to do this by myself because I didn't want to. Although Salty Scotty comes with me, I think he's watching. I asked him to come on. Yeah, Scott, comment, Scott. People have been asking for you. They, on this trip. I didn't want to have to wait for somebody to be in the mood to go, or they're working, or whatever. I wanted to be able to. Now it is much easier when on a windy day when Scott is with me and he keeps me off the dock, and then he can jump on. But I wanted to learn how to do it myself because there's not always going to be somebody there when I'm coming into the dock, and there's not going to always be somewhere when I need to leave the dock. So, and you were good about helping me with that, learning how to do it myself, because I see a lot of people taking lessons. They take it as couples, and that's fine. And one person does the helm and one person handles the lines. Do you see a lot of that?
There's a lot of there's a lot of people that start out sailing as couples and end up not sailing as couples because they don't handle that well. There's a really good book out there, and you may have read this. I don't know. It's called "It's Your Boat Too," and I used to push that a lot for couples when I was teaching sailing. And the book was written years ago, and just kind of the story behind it. We were at a boat show, and Kathleen went to one of the seminars at the boat show, and it was the author of this book that had this, and it was a woman who was teaching it, and it was a woman that wrote the book, and the book was primarily to women, and her message was, "It's your boat too." And as she got out of that, and she came and got me, and she said, "You need to come watch this." And I was teaching sailing at that time, and I was the only man in the tent where they were doing the seminar. But and I talked to him, and it was really good. She and her husband both sailed, and they were both retired Navy, if I remember correctly. And they were going cruising, and the message that she was trying to get out to women is it's your boat and you need to take responsibility on the boat. And they had a system where they alternated doing things on the boat. Now and she acknowledged that they both had things that they were better at than the other, but they both knew how to do everything on the boat. And she talks about kind of an aha moment that she had, where her husband, they were not cruising yet. They were both still working, but they actively sailing the boat. And her husband had to go somewhere, had to travel for work, and he was gone for a period of time. And she was talking to him on the phone and said, hey, I really miss sailing. And he said, go get some of your friends and go take the boat out. And she was reluctant to do that, but she did. Well, when she and her husband sailed together, and I'm bad about this, I do this, they get the boat all put away, and they'd start back for the car, and he'd go, oh, I need to go check one more thing. And you do things so much, you can't remember. Did I close the companionway? Did I tie up that one extra dock line? All those things, that ritual that you do when you get back to the dock, making sure that you did it. And I'm bad about, you've done it so many times, you can't remember if you did it. And he used to do that. And she said it really irritated her because they'd be almost back to the car and he'd have to go back and check that one more thing. She took the boat out with her friends. They went out, they went sailing, they did their thing, they came back in. She was almost to the car and she went, oh, did I? And she said she turned around to go back to do that. And that's when it hit her that she had been dumping all that responsibility onto him, the ultimate responsibility for making sure that everything was done, instead of splitting that. And she said, you need to split that, and it needs to be equal responsibility. And again, you're going to have things, each of you are going to have things that you're better at than the other, but it's really important that you both take responsibility. My wife is an active sailor, very capable sailor. We've had his and her boats. That's a whole different story, but we have his and her boats. And when I'm on her boat, we sail it her way. But that's something that when we're going out, we establish, okay, you're going to be the one responsible today. You're going to be the skipper today. And I'm perfectly happy being crew, or I'm perfectly happy being skipper, but we take that responsibility and we share it.
Well, that book that I was talking about, BYOB, has a chapter about marriages and the problems that it causes. And it's usually the man barking at the woman, making her mad. And the book talks about the importance of her going and taking her own lessons, get her own instructor, and learning what to do. And you told me one time, tell your husband, I just fell off the boat. What are you going to do?
Yeah. Yeah.
And you said, don't tell him I told you that.
Yeah.
Sorry, Scott.
Well, it's important. It's important that everybody knows. And if you follow sailing news, you'll see those stories from time to time where one of them fell off the boat and the other one had absolutely no idea what to do. My wife had never sailed when we got married, and I'm a smart enough guy to know, even though I'm a sailing instructor, I am not the guy to teach my wife. And so
you're a smart man.
Yeah, she went to a sailing class with a friend, and she learned. She went to a basic keelboat class, and she learned. So
you can just sit important. in a marina for 5 or 10 minutes and see the couples coming in and out and see the friction.
I taught a lot of couples, and there was a lot of times, and I'd always try and start out kind of making a joke of it, where the husband, who has no sailing experience, and he's going to tell her how to do it. And you always kind of keep it lighthearted. So it's like, hey, let's pretend I'm the instructor, and I'm going to teach both of you, But there's times where I'd really have to put the hammer down. But, and I got to tell on myself, Catalina and I were out sailing doing something, and I don't remember what it was. And I spoke a little too sharply, and my wife she's a Missouri girl. She is a very strong-willed, very hard-headed, very kind, compassionate person. But No, she's working. But when she
Oh,
gets
okay.
mad, she can let you have it. And she turned around and looked at me and she said, "You would never talk to a student like that." And that was kind of
Ooh.
one of those, wow, you are absolutely right. And I said, "You're absolutely right." Now, on the other hand, you speak to me sometimes the way you would never speak to an instructor. And we talked that through. We said, "Okay, I'll talk to you like a student if you'll talk to me like an instructor." And there's
Oh,
times
yeah.
when she'll say, I don't remember how to do this. How do we do that? And I say, "Okay, let's do that like a student instructor." So, we're going to go over how to heave too. And so we'll go through that. But yeah, it can be a marriage breaker. But it can be a marriage builder. And I've had a lot of guys tell me, "You're a very lucky guy because your wife will go sailing with you." Well, she will, and I am. Don't misunderstand me, but part of that is because we resolved a lot of that years ago, and I'm not saying we're perfect. It's marriage is a learning experience and always will be, but I treat her as an equal on the boat. I'm not barking at her. So I had
Yeah.
somebody years ago when I was sailing on the lake. I used to race back then. I don't race much anymore. But it was a husband and wife that raced a Catalina 22, and she came to me and said, "Will you race with Jim?" And I said, "Well, I thought you were crewing for him." She said, "Yeah, but I'm not crewing for him. He yells at me, and he'll yell at you." And I said, "He'll only yell at me once." And so I crewed for him on the, and he turned around. We tacked the boat, and we right after we tacked the boat, he turned around and he started clapping his hands and he said, "Housekeeping, housekeeping, housekeeping." And I said, "Don't ever speak to me like that again." And he looked very surprised. And I said, "I know how to clean up the boat after attack." And he was just completely taken back, and he did not realize that he had done that. And so, but that's the way he'd been doing with his wife. "Well, don't do me like that."
Oh.
And so after the race, she came up and she said, "How'd it go?" I said, "It went fine." She said, "Did he yell at you?" I said, "Only once."
Did he get better after that with his wife?
He got better. He got better with me. I don't know if he got better with his wife, but yeah.
Oh, wait. Okay. So I'm going to put up your website for, there he is. Meet Captain Ralph Bush, Pier 1 Yacht Sales. And then here's the bottom part of that. And here's your bio. And so if you guys are looking for some help, and correct me if I'm wrong, but you do know a little thing about Island Packets, don't you?
Oh, yes. Yeah, I just listed another Island Packet, in fact. Yeah, I've sold a bunch of them. And sailed.
What did you list?
I sailed
an Island Packet 30, here.
An Island Packet 38 with external chain plates.
So, that's a little controversial.
Yeah. Kick the hornet's nest there. But yeah, I'd sailed on Salty Abandon, on the original Salty Abandon before it was ever the Salty Abandon. So yeah.
That's right. Before, when it was Island Sun.
Yeah, we attempted the first Pensacola La Habana race on that boat.
Yeah, tell that story. It was on my wasn't mine yet. 1988 Island Packet 27, and the guy that owned it, his name was Gene. The guy I bought it from, and he got you guys. Oh, I'm telling the story. You go ahead.
Well, no, actually, he didn't get. I got him. We didn't really care about the race. We just wanted to go to Cuba.
Oh.
And so that was the whole. Well, in order to go to Cuba, you got to have some reason to go. So we got into the race as a reason to go to Cuba.
And he needed crew, a qualified crew.
No, it was the other way. It was Kathleen and I wanted to go to Cuba, so we talked Gene into it, and we got him to bring his boat into the deal. So we talked him into it, and he was a willing participant. But so it was the three of us. We were by 10 foot, the smallest boat in the race. Everybody else was at least 10 foot bigger.
There was
And,
people lost masts in that. It's
oh yeah, boats got dismasted. There was a couple of boats. One boat that made it in, that diverted into Tampa, sinking, and at that point they lost the electrical and they were bailing by hand. So yeah, it was really, really rough weather out in the Gulf, and big seas for the Gulf. And if you sail in the Gulf, 8-9 foot in the Gulf with really short periods. And as you know, the Island Packet 27 is a great boat, but they're really beamy, really short boats. And so they really have a tendency to hobby horse. They buck a lot. And so we were just pounding into the seas. And
I think it was you that decided, like Gene said, oh, I would have kept going, but Captain Ralph decided to turn around.
Well, 24 hours out, we looked at, and by that time we had already decided we'd take the penalty. So we were running our motor, and we were just pounding into the seas. And so
that's my boat that you were doing that
in. I know. Our speed over ground, over an extent, I don't remember, but it was like over 12 hours, had been 1 knot. We were just not making headway. And so, and to go into Cuba, you're permitted for a period of time. You can't get there before a certain time, and you can't enter after a certain time. We wouldn't have, at that rate, we would not have made it. We wouldn't have made it to Cuba in time. We would have got there and had to turn around and come home. You were ready
just to give up on that whole thing.
Yeah.
And
to
clarify, that was the first time they had that race in 50 years or something, since 19.
Yeah, and at the skipper's meeting the night before, the weather routing service that they hired, and I'm not talking about, they went onto the Weather Channel or windfinder.com. They actually have a weather routing service where they have a meteorologist who is assigned specifically to your race.
Wow.
And that meteorologist said, you need to delay the start of the race for 48 hours because the weather is too bad. And they didn't. No, they didn't.
They didn't.
No, they started the race on time. So anyway, it was a fun experience. It was a really fast trip home.
Oh yeah.
So
you were going right into the
Yeah, the wind was right. Yeah, the wind was right out of the south, and even the fastest boats. I think Bob Kriegel's the one that won that year, and I think Kriegel was even almost 48 hours late because they covered a lot of the Gulf. Packing back and forth, and the weather was really bad in the Western Gulf. So anyway, it was a fun experience.
That doesn't sound fun.
It's one of those typical sailing experiences. More fun the farther away you get from the time. It wasn't all that much fun.
Oh
at the
yeah,
time, but
yeah.
Now
and
looking back,
we'll save that. Well, I'll have to have Kathleen on to tell the story about us crossing and we lost power. But that's for another day. We've been on here for. I'm not rushing or anything, but an hour and 19 minutes. So I want to encourage. I'm gonna bring you in so you can see the questions. Let me see if I can do that. Yes. Okay. All right. Nobody's asking anything right now, but I want to encourage it right now. Go, because there's like 9 people right now watching. There's 2 on Facebook and 7 on YouTube, and there'll be a lot of people that watch afterwards, of course. But okay, you guys, the people that are watching, ask a question. Go. You should be able to see the comments now. Can you see them? If you look over to your right, there might be like a box that says comments.
I've got it set on full screen for me, so maybe that I need to change that. Let's see, exit full screen.
Should be like on the right hand side, but so it's
okay, there we go. Comments.
Yeah, come on, you guys. Oh, now there's 12 people watching. Ask a question. Captain Ralph, ask a question, or me. Ask me a question. I guess nobody's curious. Well, is there anything else that you'd like to say? I had that. Key West John wanted to know. He's watching, I think. He says he wanted me to ask you this.
Okay.
If anchoring in light winds.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, wait. Somebody asked a question. Do you see it? How much sailing did you do in Oklahoma?
A lot. There's a very active sailing club in Grove, Oklahoma, and so I sailed there a lot. Yeah, Grand Lake Sailing Club, sailing on Grand Lake. I learned to sail on Lake Oolaga at an ASA school there, and then sailed all the time. I was down there all the time.
That's just shocking. Oh, I learned to sail in Oklahoma.
I know, and people ask all the time, really, there's lakes in Oklahoma? Yeah, there really are lakes in Oklahoma. So yeah.
David, are you from Oklahoma? Let's see if he'll answer. And while we're waiting on that, I'm going to ask Key West John's. He's my weather advisor. Key West John is somebody I met on my first trip to Key West back in 2016. And he flew with Southwest for 25 years as a pilot, as a captain, and he's a lifetime sailor. So, and he has a retirement job where he flies a 737 in his retirement job. The man knows weather.
Yeah.
So I often concur. I'll say, I think I should cross on this day. Do you concur? And he'll offer me advice and kind of watch out for me and everything. So he wants to know. Got a good question for the podcast. If anchoring in light winds and you don't want to have your anchor rod wrap around your keel when you have a current changing during the night from one direction to the opposite, then what is the best position to set a stern anchor? Should you set so the current comes bow for some time and then stern, or should you set so the current is from one side for a while and then the opposite side? I kind of prefer the bow and stern current rather than sides. Do you know what that means?
I'm not sure that I followed all of that.
I remember that he anchored at Pavilion Key down off Everglades City, and he got all tangled up in the middle of the night. So,
yeah, and that can happen if you've got real light wind and not a lot of current, and the boat just kind of meanders, and so around over the top of your anchor. And so what happened is, you can get the anchor rod wrapped around the keel, and wing keels are real popular now. So if you've got a wing keel and you get the anchor rod wrapped around it, it becomes a real problem.
I think that's what he has.
Hung up. Yeah, it becomes
He's
a real
got a
problem.
Hunter, like 30 or something.
Yeah. So that's really a problem with the wing keel. So you definitely want to put a second anchor down. You can do bow and stern. You can do just two anchors 45 off, and you're not going to swing. But if you've got light wind like that and, really almost no current, it really doesn't matter. Just get a second anchor down so you're not going to meander over the top of your anchor.
I have a place on my bowsprit for another anchor. And I never know for a second anchor. I never know how to do that. Does one go this way and one goes this way?
Well, kind of, yeah. I mean, you can set two anchors 45 off, just 45 degrees apart. You're going to set the first one with the boat, and you'll set the second one with the dinghy. And the bad thing is you won't swing. And a funny story about that, years and years ago, I went with some friends. It was the first charter I'd done down in the Caribbean. It was the first time I'd ever been to St. Bart's. And good friends, and we sailed together. And a few months after the trip, we became friends again. But just kidding. But anyway, we got into Gustavia, and we were anchoring in the outer harbor in Gustavia. And Ken, the one who had put the whole charter together, he was the one that had made all the arrangements. And so to the charter company, he was the skipper. And he took that just a little too seriously. And we got into Gustavia, and he was just adamant that we needed to put two anchors down. And it is a very active anchorage, but we really had almost
Yeah.
200
What
feet of
about
chain
all
and
the
a.
boats are supposed to all swing?
Well, that
I
was
mean,
that was our point. Is we're not
yeah.
going to swing, and so you get 5 sailors together, and you're going to get 6 different opinions on what to do because one won't even be able to make up their own
What about
mind.
the instructor in the
And
crowd?
so I wasn't an instructor at that time. I wasn't an instructor. So we put a second anchor down because I wanted a beer and a shower and to get ashore, and not in that order. I wanted to go ashore and get a shower because they have public showers in Gustavia, and I wanted a
So you
beer
just
and
let
just
him
needed to
do,
get off the
like
boat.
whatever.
So fine. So 2 o'clock in the morning, somebody is beating on the hull of our boat, and I jumped up and ran out there, and yeah, everybody else in the anchorage had swung, and we did not swing. And so there was another sailboat that had swung into us, and that poor guy was out there in French calling us all kinds of things with his feet, using his
Yeah.
feet to hold his boat off of our boat. And
Oh my
so,
gosh.
yeah, yeah, we had to get out in 2 o'clock in the morning and go pick up the second anchor. It's a shame about Ken. We hung him that night from the yardarm. So.
Oh my gosh. He's
Yeah.
kidding. Somebody
Yeah,
will
just
clip
kidding.
that and put it up.
Yeah,
It shows up
just
dead.
kidding. Yeah,
What?
just
So that's
kidding. But,
really
no.
only good if you're in not a crowded anchorage.
The anchoring etiquette is you anchor the same way as everybody else does, and if you're not, go anchor somewhere else. And we violated that, and so everybody else was
Yeah,
out there with a single
even
bow
I
anchor, and we weren't.
know that doesn't make sense, if you're in a
Yeah,
crowded anchorage. I mean,
yeah. It didn't make sense to us either, but we gave
well,
in,
see,
and it didn't work out.
okay, so this David says my best friend used to sail in Oklahoma on a Melgus. Is that how you say that
Yeah,
too?
on a Malgus. What do you know where he sailed out of? Did he sail out of Grand Lake Sailing Club or over by Tulsa? Or then he raced a CMC on the Gulf Coast for years.
So David,
Yeah.
so Captain Ralph saying where in Oklahoma? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
This one.
There's actually a pretty active racing group in Oklahoma on Grand Lake, and in fact, at one point, their claim to fame, the Grand Lake Sailing Club, where I used to sail, had the first and only long distance inland race. They had an endurance race that was a 50 and 100-mile race. And Grand Lake is like 12 miles long, so you're like sailing laps around the race. But it went for 50
so
and 100
David
miles.
said, sorry, we asked him a question.
Yeah.
He wanted to know where in Oklahoma he was sailing the
Do you know
Melgus?
Yeah, where he sailed the Melgus out of?
Melgus.
Yeah.
Come on, David. All right, he's thinking. And then this was the other comment. He would always race there. Moved to Louisiana in the 70s. Raced C&C 35 on the Gulf Coast for years. That sounds more like it on the Gulf Coast.
Yeah. CNCs are great boats. Yeah.
You know what all these are.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I've sold some CNCs.
Key West John. Go ahead.
Go ahead. No. Go ahead.
Key West John replied on my text on my phone. He heard us talking about it. He said, "Yep, that's me, wing kill, and it ain't fun when ride gets wrapped. Road gets wrapped.
Somebody's getting wet. Somebody's going swimming."
Well, he did. He had to jump in with his mask and everything.
And this was where? Down in Everglades City?
Well, there's a little island called Pavilion Key, and I actually went to it because he would always talk about it, and I go, I got to see this place. If you look at it on Google Maps, it looks beautiful. It looks like, and you're still in cell phone service. It's right outside off the coast of Everglades City, and he has. I have the Starlink now, so I was able to. I didn't stay when I came through there because it was too rough. So I went ahead and went into Everglades City again. But yeah, it's like this little. I think it's a state park, so there's nothing on it. You
Yeah,
should go
except
down there.
I go. The Everglades Challenge goes through there. There's nothing down there except alligators, pythons,
Oh
and
yeah.
that's the Everglades. That's serious Everglades. It
Oh
probably
yeah.
didn't make it in the news up there, but there was and it's probably been a year ago now, maybe more. I don't know. I lose
I met
track.
that
But
guy.
a
I met.
guy that
I know what you're gonna say.
the guy that anchored down in Everglades City and came back to Naples and found a python in their in their
He came
spare
back to
head.
Marco, and they made him
That's right.
leave.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
met him in Gulfport. He told me the story, and then I was
Yeah.
like, I wonder if that was real. And they had just bought that boat, like over on the Miami area or Fort Lauderdale or something.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, here he answered, and they were brand new.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, they were brand new, and they went into what's that river? Yeah, and I've been there now.
Shark
I went
River.
on this trip.
Shark River. The Shark
Yeah,
River.
yeah.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
they got to, I think they went to Rose Marina and found a little surprise in their bed. It was a python, and which is pretty horrific. And then I went online and found a local news story about it, and they showed it wrapped
Yeah.
around the guy and law enforcement, I don't know who it was. They came and got it off, and then they made them leave in case there were more. That Marco made them leave. Keep
I'd have
on
burned
going.
that boat to the water line. I'd have burned it to the water line. I'd have gotten off, set it on fire, and yeah. I don't
Well,
do
I
snakes.
interviewed him. I didn't get that story on camera, but he said there was one window, one porthole that didn't have a screen, and he thinks it came through
Okay.
there.
Yeah.
And so,
Yeah. I don't do snakes.
but I went there on this trip, and man, as soon as the sun starts going down, the no-see-ums are fierce back in
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
I
Oh
was
yeah.
trying to take a picture of the sunset. There's no way. You have to hurry up and get it. Take a
Yeah.
dive in.
Yeah.
But yeah, Pavilion Key. So you got to check that out. What
Lake
else? What else,
Okeechobee's
Ralph?
like that. If you come across the Okeechobee Waterway, have you made that trip across the Okeechobee Waterway?
I haven't. I'm scared to do it by myself because of the locks and the tying up, and I'm scared I'm going to ruin the boat.
It's a fun trip to do about every 10 years. I've done it more than that, but it ceases to be fun if you're doing it more than that. But it is fun. And one of the former owners of Pier 1 used to say everything you need to know about navigating and running a boat in Florida, you learn on the Okeechobee Waterway, because you have to learn navigation going across Okeechobee. Because if you go across the lake, there's a marker in the middle and you got to hit it. You learn how to do locks, how to do bridges, but coming across into Clewiston, you're still actually a mile or 2 miles out, and you're into a channel which has got sawgrass on both sides. And I was coming through there, and it was dark. It was getting dark, and the mosquitoes. I really thought it was the Blue Angels coming in behind me.
I've heard about it. Like a big cloud.
Yeah, it was mosquitoes, and I dove down below and grabbed the spray and sprayed me and the boat and put the screens in and sprayed the screens and sprayed everything.
Yeah, then you got to get them out of inside, and
yeah, you don't want to be out there after dark.
And then they're there in the morning too until the sun comes up.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Yeah. And it was like that in Everglades City too. But on this trip, I got to see Goodland. I got to see Everglades City, and Key West. John was down there. You know, he came up from Key West, and I got local knowledge before going back there, you know, from a Marco captain. He had me go take a shortcut that I would have never done. But he said, no, you can get in there if you go at high tide. And that's really important. Let's talk about local knowledge. I'm a big believer. There was something recently I asked when I was leaving Tampa Bay, and I was in Bradenton. I said, do you think I could squeeze out that little side there? He goes, no. I said, yeah. But it looks like I could. And he goes, I wouldn't do. I said, okay, I'll take your word for it. You know what I'm talking about? That little shortcut through the main channel of Tampa Bay.
Oh yeah, I know exactly where you're talking about. Yeah.
No. Have you ever done it?
The Everglades Challenge starts right there. I've done it in small boats, but yeah, you don't. We used to sail up there all the time, but yeah, you don't want to do that. You can hit it just right if you've got maybe a swing keel and a real shallow draft boat. You can do that. But now, are you talking about the one going south? Or are you talking about the little? There's a little channel that goes if you're turning north.
It's on the north end of that main channel.
Oh,
looks
yeah.
like a little. I think there's even some markers, aren't there?
Yeah, I've done that. I wouldn't recommend it, but yeah, I've done it. It was really rough offshore. Gene and I were bringing that Albin Vega 27 down, and we had just gotten the stuffing kicked out of us. And we went in at John's Pass, and we went back out to try and get back out, and we got back out, and we decided we're not doing this. And so, yeah, there's a little swash channel that comes in right there. And so we went through it, but that's a fairly shallow draft boat, small boat. And yeah, we came back in through there. But
yeah, mine's 4.25. I thought I could.
Yeah.
But the captain and Marco, instead of going around Cape Sable, is it?
In Marco,
no.
Yeah.
What's that big shallow area you got to go around? Instead of going around that, he said I could go in that pass, and it's got a kind of a funky name, and I can't think of it right now. It took me forever to learn how to say it, and now I can't remember it. He said, you can get in there. And I was like, that saves a lot of hours. And I did.
Yeah.
And that's the benefit of local knowledge. And so
local knowledge is important. Don't hesitate to ask the locals. And then when you ask them and you get the advice, follow it.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's just so many boat captains out there, the boat community. They're so helpful, and say, hey, I need some local knowledge. And they perk up. Everybody likes to be asked a little of their expertise, right, Captain Rob?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Well, I guess we've been on here for an hour and 38 minutes. Can you believe that? This
wow.
is just flown by. Well, people like long content these days. I always like long content. So I think we've covered some really good stuff. There's not any fluff in here. You have such a wealth of knowledge. And maybe we'll do it again.
Yeah.
So many stories.
You got a couple more coming up. So I'll give you a chance to plug. You got some more coming up. You had some other people that you were going to do this, right?
Oh, yeah. Great idea. Thanks. Okay, so Cecilia Potts. I don't know if you know her.
She did a survey. So, yeah, for me. Yeah.
There's not too many women surveyors, are there? Are there?
No, there's not.
She is so good. Like she was recommended by Hayden Cochran, who is like the head big cheese of the Island Packet community. And he's a broker, and he special. You know him, Hayden Cochran? Yeah, and he specializes in he's now gone on his boat until May, and I'll be interviewing him. But I said, who should I use? And he said, oh, Cecilia. They call her Cece, I think, Potts. And she did the boat that I looked at in Fort Pierce, and I didn't even have her. She's expensive. I mean, I don't know, $100 an hour, and that's to do the actual survey and also do the paperwork, the actual report. And we stopped in the middle of the report after I could see where we were going with the report. It wasn't looking good. And she said, you want me to stop? I said, yeah. And then the next week I went to Palmetto to the Regatta, Safe Harbor Regatta Marina. And that's where I found the boat that I'm on right now. And I told the guy within 10 minutes I was writing an offer, and I want to close in 2 weeks. He goes, well, surveyors they're like 3 weeks out, 4 weeks out. I said, I got one that can do it next week. And so she travels around the whole state, and he goes, oh, really? Well, they don't go up the mast anymore. I go, mine does.
Yeah, she does.
And he goes,
I was impressed with that. Yeah. I was impressed with that because most surveyors will not climb the mast, and they just tell you.
I cannot believe that. How can you buy a sailboat without someone going up, especially doing the kind of stuff I'm doing? Yeah.
They'll recommend having a rigging inspection. But so much of it is controlled by liability, and even if you have a rigger come in and do a rigging inspection, no matter what he finds, he's going to tell you if the rig hasn't been replaced within standing rigging hasn't been replaced within, some of them it's 5 years, but certainly 10 years. He's going to tell you you need to have it all
Cecilia
replaced.
did recommend an independent diesel inspection, and so I did get that.
Yeah.
And so, and he was, he was happy with what he found. It's so clean down there. So yeah, I definitely recommend her. She said she's getting all her podcast stuff. She wants to wait till she gets all her equipment for me to interview her. But I think she is just so impressive. And I've had her, I don't know if you know this, Captain Ralph, but I bought the boat in October 2020. I closed a month after the hurricane that I lost the other one. So it was a month, right? And I've had her do 2 addendums to the survey. And since, to increase the value because of all the stuff I added, all the upgrades.
Yeah.
So she came out a few months after and we added, like 20 grand. And then just a couple months ago, I was passing through Bradenton. She came and she got another one. I got it. And my insurance took it. I called them. You have to, there's a time limit that you can put an addendum to in a survey. And they made it, an exception to do this one. This last one, they got permission and then they increased my coverage. And so that's a lesson I learned on my first boat. I never upped the insurance. And so I learned a good lesson on that. So now I've got, Key West John says Cape Romano.
Okay. Yeah. Cape Romano Shoals. Yeah. Cape Romano Shoals. Yeah.
Shout out to Key West John. He stayed on text with us when Scott and I were on the boat during Hurricane Sally. We didn't mean to do that, by the way. We're supposed to go to Louis.
So were we, because I remember Kathleen texting you, begging you to get off the boat and leave it. So, yeah.
Were you on your? Oh, I thought you were saying you were on your boat.
Oh no! I remember Kathleen was texting you to get off the boat during Sally and leave it. Trying to get you guys to leave.
He has access to all the airports because he's a pilot. So he when it started really ramping up, he goes, oh, they just got a 70 mile or knot wind gust at Pensacola Airport or Pensacola NAS, and I think it got up to 110. What I think 105 something like. It's a whole different story on a boat.
Yeah.
I remember pulling the companionway back and going, oh my God.
Yeah.
I've been through hurricanes, but it's a whole different story on a boat.
Yeah. Yeah. It's different when you're hunkered down in a house. Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah, it's different.
All right. Well, I guess this is a good place to end it. Give yourself a plug. Anything you want to say about your various talents here? We got the website to get to sign up for, and you do those classes in Pensacola and Punta Gorda.
Yes.
Is that right?
Yep, that's correct.
And so it was like 6 days, right?
7. Yep.
Okay. And I see over here you got sail endorsement. I got that too. So
yeah.
And then here's the contact information. Want to buy a boat? Hit old Captain Ralph up.
Yeah.
And that's it. So.
All right. Thanks for putting this together.
Yeah, this is a lot of fun.
Together. This is great.
You are the perfect first person because you are so easygoing. I'm like, hey, I'm going to do an interview, and I'm kind of, stressed about it. Not really, but you're like, okay, nobody wants to watch that, but okay. And then I was like, oh, we're going to go live. Okay. You're just so nothing rattles you.
I've embarrassed myself in public before, so it's nothing new.
Well, here, let's just give my plug one more time. If you're
Oh,
looking
yeah.
for Gulffront
Yep.
property or bayfront property or even non-waterfront property in Gulf Shores and Orange Beach, Alabama, or Perdido Key, Florida, please contact me, Tinsley Myrick. And there's my email address. All right. Shameless plug.
Yeah.
All right. Shall we, I do have an exit, is it on here? Okay, here we go. So we're going to go out now. And
All right.
thank you so much. And we'll see you again. And tell Kathleen I'd like to interview her.
I will tell her. Tell Scott I said hello.
Okay. Do you think you think she'll do it?
I don't know if
she'll
she
do it?
will, but I said I'd tell her. I didn't say she'd do it. But I
Okay.
will tell
All
her.
right.
She might. She
Okay.
might. All right. Thanks.
All
Bye.
right. Bye-bye.